The large view screen in Geneva's United Earth Space Command headquarters showed the approaching alien ship. Its sleek, silver hull reflected the sunlight as it moved into Earth orbit. Everyone in the command center stared in silence. After years of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. Captain Alan Grant stood with his hands clasped behind his back. At 42, he had seen many things during his military career, including the bloody Mars conflict 5 years ago, but nothing compared to this moment. "Status report," he said to the young officer at the communications station. "They're maintaining orbit, sir, still broadcasting the same message on all frequencies." The message had arrived 3 days ago, simple and direct. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are representatives of the Galactic Confederation. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations." General Laura Phillips walked up beside Grant. "Well, Captain, ready to make history?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Grant replied, adjusting his uniform. Just yesterday, he had been preparing for retirement. Now he was about to become humanity's first official liaison to an alien species. The elevator doors opened, and Lieutenant Olivia Martinez hurried into the command center. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she carried a tablet filled with last-minute research. "Sorry I'm late, Captain," she said, slightly out of breath. "I was reviewing everything we know about their language patterns." Martinez was 35, the best xenobiologist Earth had, though until now her work had been theoretical. Her specialty in first contact protocols had seemed like an academic exercise until 3 days ago. "Any insights?" Grant asked. "Their grasp of our languages is impressive. They seem to have studied us for some time before making contact," Martins replied. "But I'm more concerned about cultural misunderstandings than linguistic ones." General Phillips checked her watch. "The delegation lands in 30 minutes. Let's head to the reception area." As they walked through the hallways of the command center, they passed windows overlooking Lake Geneva. The normally busy city had become strangely quiet. Many people had stayed home, either from fear or to watch the historic events unfold on their screens. "What do we know about them?" Grant asked Martinez. "Not much. They call themselves the Arcturians. They claim to represent something called the Galactic Confederation, which apparently includes several dozen species. And we're supposed to believe they traveled light years just to say hello." Martinez shrugged. "They say they detected unusual energy signatures from our quantum drive tests last year. It put us on their radar." The reception area had been prepared according to the alien specifications: lower gravity, dimmer lights, and slightly higher oxygen levels. A red carpet led from the landing pad to the building entrance. "Remember," General Phillips said, "this isn't just about us. You represent all of humanity today." Grant nodded. The weight of responsibility pressed down on his shoulders. The alien shuttle appeared in the sky, a small craft separating from the larger ship in orbit. It descended smoothly, making almost no sound as it landed on the pad. For several moments, nothing happened. Then a door opened on the side of the craft, and a ramp extended to the ground. The first alien emerged. It stood nearly 7 feet tall with silvery blue skin that seemed to shimmer. Its 4 arms moved with graceful precision, and its large, faceted eyes took in the surroundings. Behind it came 4 others, slightly smaller but similarly elegant in their movements. "I am Ambassador Zoltar," the first alien said, its voice melodic and clear despite the unusual shape of its mouth. "We bring greetings from the Galactic Confederation." Grant stepped forward. "I am Captain Alan Grant of the United Earth Space Command. On behalf of all humanity, welcome to Earth." The alien bowed slightly. "We have much to discuss, Captain." As the delegation moved inside, Martins noticed the alien scanning the humans with small devices. "Medical precautions?" she asked politely. The alien medical officer, introduced as Dr. Xenvi, tilted its head. "Partially. We are also curious about your biology. It is unusual." Something in the way the alien said unusual made Martinez uneasy, but she smiled and continued with the welcoming protocols. None of them knew that this simple observation would soon lead to a question that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. 3 days passed with meetings, tours, and careful exchanges of information. The aliens were polite but reserved, sharing only basic details about their civilization. They seemed most interested in human history and biology. Grant noticed the aliens often looked at each other when humans answered certain questions, especially about wars and human achievements under pressure. Something was bothering them. On the 4th day, the diplomatic teams gathered in the main conference room. The walls were lined with screens showing Earth's major cities. Ambassador Zoltar sat at the head of the table, flanked by Dr. Xenvi and 2 other Arcturians. "We appreciate your hospitality," Ambassador Zoltar began. "We have learned much about your species in these few days." General Phillips nodded. "We hope this is just the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples." Dr. Xenvi placed a small device on the table. It projected a 3-dimensional image of a human brain, rotating slowly in the air. "During our standard medical scans, we found something disturbing," Dr. Xenvi said. "Something we have never seen in any other sentient species." The room fell silent. Martins leaned forward, her training in xenobiology triggering alarm bells in her mind. "May I ask what concerns you?" she asked carefully. Dr. Xenvi manipulated the device, and the brain image zoomed in on certain neural pathways. They glowed red in the projection. "Why do humans possess a neurological kill switch?" the alien doctor asked bluntly. "It seems deliberately engineered." Grant looked at Martinez, confusion clear on his face. "A what?" "A kill switch," Dr. Xenvi repeated. "A neural pathway that allows you to override your natural survival instinct, to choose death when survival is possible." General Phillips frowned. "I'm not sure we understand what you mean." Ambassador Zoltar gestured to the image. "Every sentient species we have encountered evolved with self-preservation as their primary directive. It is the foundation of natural selection. Yet humans possess the ability to consciously choose actions that will result in their own death, even when alternatives exist." Martinez's eyes widened as she realized what they meant. "You're talking about self-sacrifice. Is that your term for it?" Dr. Xenvi asked. "This ability seems artificial. Was it engineered into your species by some earlier civilization?" The human delegation looked at each other in surprise. Grant almost laughed but caught himself. "No, it's a natural part of human psychology," he explained. "We've always had the capacity to put others before ourselves, sometimes at the cost of our own lives." The aliens didn't seem convinced. General Phillips pressed a button on her tablet, and a message was sent. "I've called for Dr. Samantha Wright to join us," she said. "She's our chief neurologist and can explain this better than we can." While they waited, the tension in the room grew. The aliens whispered among themselves in their own language. Dr. Wright arrived 15 minutes later. She was 39, with short blonde hair and quick, intelligent eyes. After the situation was explained to her, she studied the brain projection with interest. "This isn't a kill switch as you call it," she explained. "These neural pathways are related to our capacity for empathy and altruism. They allow us to value the lives of others, sometimes even above our own." "But why would evolution favor such a trait?" Dr. Xenvi asked. "It contradicts the basic principle of survival." Dr. Wright smiled. "Human survival has always depended on cooperation. Our early ancestors weren't the strongest or fastest animals, but they worked together. Sometimes, one person sacrificing themselves meant the whole group survived." The Arcturians exchanged troubled glances. Ambassador Zoltar's voice grew more formal. "This trait makes your species unpredictable. It concerns us." Grant noticed the shift in tone. "Unpredictable how?" "If you can choose to die for your values, for others, for abstract concepts, how can other species ever fully understand your decision-making?" The ambassador said. "The Confederation Council will need to know about this." Eric Bell, the young communications officer who had been quietly taking notes, spoke up. "I think there's a misunderstanding here. This isn't something we're ashamed of or try to hide. In fact, we celebrate this part of ourselves." The ambassador's large eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of surprise they had come to recognize. "You celebrate it?" he asked. "Perhaps," Martine suggested, "we should show you some examples from our history. It might help you understand." The aliens agreed, but their uneasiness was clear. Something about humans had disturbed them deeply, and the diplomatic mission had just become much more complicated. The next morning, the humans organized a special presentation for the aliens. They gathered in the UESC's main auditorium, where Eric Bell had prepared historical footage and records. "We thought it might help if we showed you examples of what you call our kill switch in action," Bell explained. He was nervous but eager to help the aliens understand. The lights dimmed, and images appeared on the large screen. They showed firefighters rushing into burning buildings, soldiers jumping on grenades to save their comrades, parents pushing children from the path of oncoming vehicles at the cost of their own lives. "These are all real events," Martinez explained. "Ordinary people who chose to risk or sacrifice their lives to save others." Ambassador Zoltar watched with obvious discomfort. "And you record these events? Study them?" "We honor them," Grant said quietly. "These people represent the best of humanity." Dr. Xenvi turned to Dr. Wright. "Your species celebrates the activation of the kill switch, the self-sacrifice instinct." "We do," Dr. Wright confirmed. "Many of our greatest stories and heroes are about sacrifice for others." Bell showed more footage. A woman swimming into dangerous currents to save a drowning child. A man giving his oxygen mask to others during a spacecraft emergency. A doctor staying in a plague zone to treat patients. "Do all humans possess this capability?" Ambassador Zoltar asked. "Yes, though not all would use it," Martins replied. "It's a choice." The aliens conferred among themselves in their own language. Their hand gestures became more animated than the humans had seen before. Finally, the ambassador spoke again. "We have never encountered a species like yours. In the Confederation, all member species evolved to prioritize their own survival above all else. It is the natural way." "With respect, Ambassador," Dr. Wright said, "for humans, cooperation and protecting our group has been key to our survival. A parent who dies saving their child is ensuring their genes continue. A soldier who dies for their country is protecting their larger community. But you can choose to die for strangers," Dr. Xenvi said, "for people you have never met, even for other species." "Yes," Grant acknowledged. "We can." The auditorium fell silent. The tension was thick enough to touch. Bell cleared his throat. "Maybe we should take a break. I could show you more examples later if you'd like." "That would be educational," Ambassador Zoltar said politely, but his discomfort was clear. As the group dispersed for lunch, Grant received an urgent message on his communication device. General Phillips wanted to see him immediately. "I'll catch up with you," Grant told Martinez, then hurried to the general's office. Phillips was staring at her screen when Grant entered. Her face was grim. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Our intelligence team intercepted communications between the ambassador and the Confederation Council. They're concerned about us." "Because of the self-sacrifice thing?" Grant asked, taking the seat. "Exactly. They see it as unpredictable and potentially dangerous." She turned her screen so Grant could see it. "They're debating whether humans are too unstable to join their alliance." Grant read the translated message with growing concern. "They think we might sacrifice ourselves in ways that could harm them, or that we might sacrifice them for our own ideals," Phillips said. "From their perspective, a species that can override its survival instinct is deeply disturbing. It breaks all their evolutionary understanding." Grant rubbed his temples. "So our greatest strength might keep us isolated from the galactic community." "It gets worse," Phillips continued. There's evidence that these transmissions were intercepted by a third party, a species called the Krell. The ambassador mentioned them briefly, a predatory group at the edge of Confederation space. Are they a threat? The ambassador didn't share details, but from what we gathered, yes. And now they know about us. Phillips looked directly at Grant. They know we have what the aliens call a kill switch, and they may see it as a weakness to exploit. Before Grant could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Red emergency lights flashed in the hallway. What now? Phillips muttered, reaching for her communication device. A voice came over the facility-wide announcement system. All personnel to alert stations. Unidentified vessels have entered the Sol system. They are not responding to communications. This is not a drill. Grant and Phillips looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. The diplomatic mission had just become a potential first contact war. The command center buzzed with urgent activity. Screens showed 3 unknown ships moving through the outer solar system. They had somehow bypassed Earth's early warning systems. Status report, General Phillips demanded as she and Grant rushed in. 3 vessels, unknown design. A young officer replied. They're moving fast, headed toward Mars. No response to our hails. Ambassador Zoltar entered with Dr. Xenvi and Martinez close behind. The ambassador's normally silver-blue skin had paled to an ashy gray. Those are Krell warships, Zoltar said, his voice tight with fear. How did they get here so quickly? You know these ships? Phillips asked. The Krell are predators. They sit at the edge of Confederation space, attacking weaker worlds and stealing their resources. Zoltar moved closer to the main screen. They must have intercepted our communications about humans. Why would that interest them? Grant asked. Dr. Xenvi answered. The Krell look for weaknesses to exploit. Your unusual neural trait would fascinate them. A new voice cut through the room. We're receiving a transmission from the lid ship. Put it through, Phillips ordered. The main screen flickered, then showed a reptilian face with dark scales and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. The creature had a broad, flat head with bony ridges and sharp teeth visible in its slightly open mouth. People of Earth, the creature said in a raspy voice, I am Commander Vexcor of the Krell Dominion. Your world has come to our attention. Grant stepped forward. This is Captain Alan Grant of the United Earth Space Command. You have entered our system without permission. State your intentions. The Krell commander's mouth stretched into what might have been a smile. My intentions are simple, Captain. Surrender your planet and its resources, or face destruction. We have no quarrel with you, Grant replied evenly. And Earth is well defended. Is it? Vexcoriest. Our scans show your defenses are primitive, and your colonies on Mars are completely vulnerable. The room fell silent. Mars had over 2 million human colonists, with minimal military protection. What do you want? Phillips asked. Everything, Vexcor replied. But I will start with a demonstration. You have 6 hours to surrender. If you refuse, we will destroy your Mars colonies. Then we will come for Earth. The screen went dark. Can they do that? Grant asked Zoltar. Destroy the Mars colonies. The ambassador nodded grimly. The Krell have weapons that can crack a planet's crust. Your Mars settlements would be easy targets. Phillips turned to her officers. What military assets do we have in position? The UESC Defender is currently on patrol near Mars. It's our only combat-ready vessel in the area. Get me Captain Monroe of the Defender, Phillips ordered. While they waited, Martinez approached Grant. Captain, the Confederation representatives are requesting emergency evacuation back to their ship. Grant looked at Zoltar. You're leaving. This is not our conflict, the ambassador said. The Confederation does not interfere in Krell attacks. It would risk wider war. So you'll just watch as they destroy our colonies. Grant couldn't keep the anger from his voice. I am sorry, Captain. Zoltar lowered his forearms in what seemed like a gesture of regret. This is why we were concerned about your species joining the Confederation. The Krell target worlds they consider worth the risk. Your kill switch trait makes you unpredictable, but it also makes you vulnerable. Before Grant could respond, the communications officer called out, "We have Captain Monroe on the line." The screen showed a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a stern expression. Behind her, the bridge of the Defender was on high alert. "General Phillips, we're tracking 3 hostile vessels headed for Mars. Orders. Captain Monroe is injured in an accident," Phillips said quietly to Grant. "You're taking command of the Defender. We need someone who understands what we're dealing with." Grant nodded, his mind already racing through options. "Prepare for emergency transport to the Defender," Phillips ordered. "Lieutenant Martinez, you're going too. We need your expertise on these aliens." As they rushed to prepare, Ambassador Zoltar approached Grant one last time. "I will not leave," the ambassador said unexpectedly. "I will stay to observe. Perhaps then I will understand why the Confederation fears your species so much." Grant looked at the alien with new respect. "Thank you, Ambassador, but you should know. You're about to witness what happens when someone threatens our people." "Yes," Zoltar replied softly. "I believe that is precisely what I need to see." The UESC Defender hung in space between Mars and the approaching Krell ships. It was a mid-sized vessel, not designed for full combat against multiple warships. Grant stood on the bridge, Martinez at his side, studying the tactical display. "Time until the Krell are in firing range of Mars?" Grant asked. 4 hours, 17 minutes, the tactical officer replied. Grant turned to Ambassador Zoltar, who stood silently observing the humans. "What can you tell us about Krell battle tactics?" "They rely on superior firepower and intimidation," the ambassador said. "They rarely expect resistance. Most species surrender rather than risk destruction." "Well, we're not most species," Grant said grimly. He turned to the ship's chief engineer, Paul Rodriguez. "What options do we have?" Rodriguez was a stocky man of 45 with weathered skin and careful hands. He pulled up a schematic on the main screen. "Their lead ship is the command vessel," he explained. "If we can disable it, the other 2 might retreat, but we'd need to get close enough to deliver a heavy strike, and their weapons would tear us apart before we could." Martinez studied the Krell ships. "What about a direct hit with a fusion missile?" "Their shields would deflect it," Rodriguez replied. Unless what?" Grant prompted. Rodriguez's face grew serious. "Unless we detonate it from inside their shields." The bridge fell silent as everyone understood the implication. "You mean a suicide run?" Grant said flatly. Rodriguez nodded. "A small shuttle could approach under the guise of a diplomatic vessel. Their shields are designed to let small ships through for boarding. Once inside, we detonate a fusion device." "That's not an option," Grant said firmly. "We don't sacrifice people." Ambassador Zoltar watched this exchange with growing interest. "The rest of the fleet is 5 hours away," Martinez reminded them. "If we don't stop the Krell now, millions on Mars will die." Grant paced the bridge, searching for alternatives. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," Rodriguez said quietly. "I've run the simulations. This is our only chance to save Mars." Grant shook his head. "Even if I agreed, who would pilot such a mission? I can't order anyone to do that." "You don't have to," Rodriguez said. "I volunteer." The room fell silent again. Rodriguez continued, his voice steady. "My wife died in the Mars conflict 3 years ago. She's buried there. I won't let those creatures destroy her resting place or kill millions of our people." "Paul, I can't let you do this," Grant said. "With respect, Captain, it's not your choice to make." Rodriguez's eyes were clear and determined. "This is exactly what the aliens were talking about, our ability to choose sacrifice when necessary. It's not a weakness, it's our strength." Ambassador Zoltar stepped forward. "You would willingly die to save others." To save millions. Yes, Rodriguez answered simply. The alien's expression was unreadable. Even though many on Mars are strangers to you, they're human. That's enough. Rodriguez turned back to Grant. Captain, we're running out of time. Grant looked at his old friend, seeing the determination in his eyes. After a long moment, he nodded once. Prepare the shuttle and the device, he ordered. But we keep working on alternatives until the last possible moment. As the crew rushed to their tasks, Grant pulled Rodriguez aside. Paul, are you sure about this? Rodriguez smiled slightly. Remember when we were cadets, and you asked me why I joined the service? I said I wanted my life to matter. This way, it will. In the shuttle bay, Martins helped Rodriguez prepare while engineers loaded a fusion device onto the small craft. The Krell won't suspect a thing until it's too late, Rodriguez explained as he checked the systems. The shuttle will appear to be carrying a diplomatic messenger. Grant arrived with Ambassador Zoltar. The captain handed Rodriguez a small data chip. A message for your daughter, Grant said. I'll make sure she gets it. Rodriguez took it with a nod of thanks. Then he sealed his flight suit and prepared to board. I'll need to lock the bay once I'm inside, he told them. So this is goodbye. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Krell are hailing us, a voice announced over the comm. They're earlier than expected, Martinez said. Rodriguez looked at Grant. No more time for alternatives, Captain. Grant clasped his friend's hand one last time. Then Rodriguez entered the shuttle and sealed the door. As they left the bay, Ambassador Zoltar watched in fascination as Rodriguez prepared for his final mission. On the bridge, Grant faced the main screen where Commander Vexcor's reptilian face appeared. The Krell leader's yellow eyes narrowed as he recognized Grant. Captain, your time to surrender has not yet expired. Why do you contact us? To negotiate, Grant replied steadily. We request a meeting to discuss terms. Vexcor's tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Terms. There are no terms. Only surrender. Surely we can find a solution that benefits us both, Grant continued. He needed to keep the Krell commander talking. We're sending a shuttle with a diplomat to discuss possibilities. In the shuttle bay, Rodriguez completed his final checks. The fusion device was secured and armed. He would have exactly 3 minutes after initiating the detonation sequence to escape, though he had no intention of trying. Shuttle ready for launch, he reported over the comm. Proceed, Chief. Grant's voice came back. And, good luck. Rodriguez took a deep breath and launched. The small craft emerged from the defender and moved smoothly toward the Krell formation. On the bridge, Martinez watched the tactical display showing Rodriguez's shuttle approaching the lead Krell ship. Ambassador Zoltar stood beside her, his large eyes fixed on the screen. He knows he won't return, the ambassador said quietly. Yet he goes anyway. Yes, Martinez replied. That's what you've been trying to understand about us. The Krell ship is scanning the shuttle, the tactical officer reported. They're lowering shields to allow it to dock. Grant nodded. Everything was proceeding as planned. Suddenly, warning lights flashed. Captain, we're detecting energy buildup in the Krell weapon systems. They're not taking the bait, Grant realized. They're going to destroy the shuttle. On the small craft, Rodriguez saw the warning lights too. The Krell had seen through their plan. With seconds to decide, he pushed the engines to maximum and aimed directly at the largest opening in the Krell ship, the main hangar bay. Rodriguez to defender, he called. They're not letting me dock. I'm going in hot. Tell my daughter I love her. Before anyone could respond, Rodriguez crashed his shuttle through the hangar bay force field. The shuttle skidded across the deck, smashing into rows of Krell fighters before coming to a stop. Dazed but determined, Rodriguez reached for the detonator. As Krell soldiers surrounded the damaged shuttle, he smiled once and pressed the button. The explosion tore through the Krell command ship. On the defender's bridge, everyone watched as a massive fireball erupted from within the enemy vessel. The shields that would have stopped an external attack were useless against an explosion from inside. "Rodriguez did it," Martins whispered. The Krell command ship listed to one side, power systems failing across its massive hull. The other two ships broke formation, clearly confused by the sudden attack. "Target the second ship," Grant ordered, his voice tight with emotion. "Fire everything we have." The Defender launched its missiles, striking the second Krell ship while its defenses were down. Explosions bloomed along its hull. "The third ship is turning away," the tactical officer reported. "They're retreating." A cheer went up on the bridge, but Grant remained solemn. The victory had come at a terrible cost. Ambassador Zoltar approached him. "Your engineer," he activated what we called the kill switch. "He saved millions of lives," Grant corrected quietly. Before Zoltar could respond, the ship rocked violently. Warning alarms blared. "Status report," Grant called out. The first Krell ship fired its main weapon before losing power, the tactical officer replied. "We have hull breaches on decks 3 through 6. Reactor coolant system damage." Another officer turned from her console, face pale. "Captain, the reactor cooling system is failing. If we don't reset it manually, we'll have a meltdown in 15 minutes. Can we repair it remotely?" Grant asked. "No, sir. Someone has to go into the reactor chamber and manually reset the coolant rods." Her voice dropped. "But the radiation levels, anyone who goes in won't survive." Grant looked around the bridge. More humans would need to make the ultimate sacrifice today. "I'll do it," he said firmly. Martinez stepped forward. "Captain, we need you on the bridge." "That's an order, Lieutenant," Grant said. "You have command until I return." They both knew he wouldn't be returning. As Grant headed for the door, Ambassador Zoltar spoke. "Captain, I think I begin to understand now. What we called a kill switch, it's not about death at all, is it?" "No," Grant replied over his shoulder. "It's about what we're willing to live for and die for." Grant moved quickly through the damaged corridors of the Defender. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls, and the ship groaned around him. Crew members rushed past, putting out fires and helping the injured. At the entrance to the reactor section, a young engineer tried to stop him. "Captain, the radiation levels are too high," she warned, checking her instruments. "You won't survive more than a few minutes in there." "A few minutes is all I need," Grant replied, taking the protective suit she offered. It wouldn't save him, but it might give him enough time to complete the task. As he prepared to enter, Martinez's voice came over his comm unit. "Captain, reinforcements have arrived. The UESC Phoenix and 3 other ships just entered the system." "Good," Grant said. "Keep the Krell busy until I finish this." He sealed his helmet and entered the reactor chamber. The air shimmered with radiation, and his dosimeter immediately began beeping in warning. The coolant rods were visible at the far end of the room, their control panel flashing red. On the bridge, Martinez took command. "Target the remaining Krell ship. Coordinate with the Phoenix for a flanking maneuver." Ambassador Zoltar watched her work with fascination. "Another human would have to die to save your ship. If the reactor melts down, everyone dies." Martinez explained grimly. "The captain is giving us a chance." "First your engineer, now your captain," Zoltar said. "Is there no limit to what humans will sacrifice?" Before Martinez could answer, a new voice came over the communication system. "This is Admiral Chen of the Confederation Fleet. We have entered your system in response to an emergency beacon from Ambassador Zoltar." Martinez looked at the ambassador in surprise. "You called for help." "After seeing your engineer's sacrifice, I sent a priority distress call," Zoltar admitted. "The Confederation Council should witness what happens when humans are threatened." On the main screen, a fleet of sleek Confederation ships appeared, surrounding the remaining Krell vessel. In the reactor chamber, Grant reached the control panel. His hands shook from radiation exposure, and his vision was already blurring. He entered the reset sequence, watching as the coolant rods slowly lowered back into position. "Reactor stabilizing," he reported through gritted teeth. "Coolant flow resuming." "Captain, your radiation levels are critical," the ship's doctor called over the comm. "Get out of there now." Grant tried to move toward the exit, but his legs gave way. He collapsed to the floor, the radiation sickness already taking hold. "I'm not going to make it out," he managed to say. "Tell Martins. She has the ship." Two figures in heavy radiation suits burst into the chamber. They lifted Grant and dragged him toward the exit. "We've got you, Captain," one said, voice muffled by his helmet. Hours later, Grant woke in the medical bay. His body felt like it was on fire, and medical equipment surrounded his bed. Dr. Wright stood over him, checking his vital signs. "Am I dead?" Grant asked weakly. "Not yet," Dr. Wright replied, "though you certainly tried your best." "The radiation was fatal," she confirmed, "or would have been without Dr. Xenvi's help." The Arcturian doctor moved into Grant's field of vision. "Your cellular damage was extensive, but not beyond our medical technology." Grant tried to sit up but couldn't. "The ship, the crew, safe," Dr. Wright assured him. "The reactor is stable. The Krell have been captured by the Confederation fleet." "The Confederation came to help us?" Grant asked in confusion. Dr. Xenvi nodded. "Ambassador Zoltar sent an emergency signal after witnessing your engineer's sacrifice. The Council sent a fleet immediately." Martinez entered the medical bay, her face lighting up when she saw Grant conscious. "Captain, you're awake." "Lieutenant," Grant acknowledged. "What's our status?" "The Krell have been driven from the system. The Mars colonies are safe." She smiled. "And you have a visitor." Ambassador Zoltar stepped into the room. The alien looked different somehow, more respectful, perhaps even humbled. "Captain Grant," the ambassador said, "the Confederation Council has requested a full report on the events here." "What will you tell them?" Grant asked. "The truth," Zoltar replied. "That we fundamentally misunderstood humans, what we labeled a weakness. Your ability to override your survival instinct is actually your greatest strength." Dr. Xenvi added, "We believed evolution would never favor a species that could choose death. We never considered that evolution might favor a species that could choose what to die for." Grant looked at them both, understanding slowly dawning. "So the lesson has begun." "Yes," Ambassador Zoltar said. "And the Confederation has much to learn." 6 months later, Grant stood in Geneva's Central Plaza. The afternoon sun warmed his face as he gazed at the new memorial. A simple stone column reached toward the sky, with the names of those who died fighting the Krell carved into its surface. Paul Rodriguez's name was at the top. Grant still felt the effects of the radiation. His hair had grown back white, and he tired easily. The doctors said he might never fully recover, but he was alive. Something he hadn't expected when he entered that reactor chamber. "It's a good memorial," Martine said, coming to stand beside him. The silver captain's bars on her uniform gleamed in the sunlight. The Defender was hers now. Simple, dignified. Rodriguez would have approved, Grant agreed. People began to gather in the plaza. Today marked the signing of the formal alliance between Earth and the Galactic Confederation. After months of negotiations, humans would join the interstellar community. Dr. Wright approached them, accompanied by Dr. Xenvi. The two had spent the past months collaborating on research. "Our paper on human neural pathways has been distributed throughout the Confederation," Dr. Wright said. "It's completely changed how they view our species." "And how is that?" Grant asked. Dr. Xenvi answered, "No longer as dangerous or unpredictable, but as essential. Your willingness to sacrifice for others brings balance to our community." The crowd parted as Ambassador Zoltar walked toward them, accompanied by other Confederation representatives. The ambassador looked different now. He wore a small pin on his chest, with Earth's image on it. "Captain Grant." Zoltar greeted him warmly. Today is a historic day for both our peoples. It's just Grant now, he corrected gently. I'm retired from service. Not entirely, General Phillips said, joining the group. The Confederation has requested a human advisor for their peacekeeping force. I suggested you. Grant raised his eyebrows. Me? I thought I was damaged goods. On the contrary, Zoltar said, you are exactly what we need. Someone who understands the true meaning of sacrifice. A hush fell over the crowd as the Confederation High Council members took their places at the signing table. Earth's representatives joined them, and the formal ceremony began. As Grant watched, he noticed Rodriguez's daughter in the crowd. She was a young woman of 20, with her father's determined eyes. After the battle, Grant had given her the data chip with her father's final message. Now she stood proudly, watching her father's sacrifice lead to this historic moment. When the signing finished, Ambassador Zoltar requested a moment to speak. The crowd fell silent again. 6 months ago, I asked a question that revealed my ignorance. The ambassador began. I asked why humans have what we called a kill switch, the ability to override your survival instinct and sacrifice yourselves for others. The ambassador's 4 hands gestured expressively as he continued. I believe this trait made humans dangerous and unpredictable. I was wrong. It makes you invaluable. While other species evolved to survive at all costs, humans evolved to ask what is worth dying for. And in doing so, you discovered what is truly worth living for. After the ceremony, Grant found a quiet corner away from the crowds. Ambassador Zoltar sought him out. There is something I have wanted to ask you, the ambassador said. When you entered that reactor chamber, knowing you would likely die, what were you thinking? Grant considered the question carefully. I wasn't thinking about dying, he finally said. I was thinking about everyone on the ship who would live. The Krell believe your ability to sacrifice yourself is a weakness, Zoltar said. And what do you believe now? Grant asked. I believe it is why humans will thrive among the stars, Zoltar replied. Our scientists wonder if such a trait could be cultivated in other species. Grant shook his head. You can't engineer it. It comes from something deeper. What? The ambassador asked. Understanding that sometimes the most human thing isn't to save your own life, Grant said, looking back at the memorial stone. It's to make your life mean something. Zoltar was quiet for a moment. When we first met, we asked why humans have a kill switch. Now I understand. It was never about killing at all. No, Grant agreed, watching the sun set over the new alliance of worlds. It was always about living for something greater than ourselves.